Mr. Liptak, I want to thank you so much for taking the time first to come to the Elon School of Law. And I was wondering what attracted you to come here in the first place?
I try to get out to a lot of law schools. I find it very important to meet with faculty, to keep up on trends in legal scholarship, and also to meet with students who can be very inspiring.
And I'm personally a journalism major interested in going into this field specifically. And I was wondering, you talked about some of the hardships of being a journalism industry professional. You had to write a story just 30 minutes before coming here, and then right after you walk off stage, you got to file in another story. Can you talk about the hardships that you encounter with the 24-hour news cycle, and particularly covering the Supreme Court and having to simplify it for a lay audience?
So those are two different questions. The challenges of writing really fast are particularly exacerbated when the court issues stuff at odd hours, as it did tonight at around 6:30. The second problem is more general, that these are jargon-filled, long, complex, technical legal decisions, and your job as a journalist is to translate them to a lay readership, an educated readership, but not lawyers, and try to help them make sense of what's up at this very important institution.
And I think one of the more influential Supreme Courts that we've had has been Justice Earl Warren. That's one of the common courts that's always discussed in history. And back then you had a very divided Supreme Court as well at the time when Justice Warren came in. And right now we have a really divided Supreme Court as well. I was wondering if you could talk to the reason behind why it's so divided today, and just explain to people out there why there's all these 5-4 votes in highly contentious issues.
Well, in a sense, it shouldn't be surprising. The cases that get to the court have divided the lower courts. On the lower courts, they've often divided the judges in 3-judge panels. So the court gets the really hard cases, the divisive cases, the ones that reasonable people can disagree about. And that should be unsurprising then that you have the 9 justices divide. On the other hand, they tend to divide in the same arrays, the same 5, the same 4. And that does suggest that, call it politics, call it ideology, call it judicial philosophy, but there's something else at work beyond pure legal reasoning in making the justices come out the way they do. Now, the Warren Court was occasionally quite divided, but on cases like Brown v. Board of Education, it was unanimous. The current court, it's hard to think of a lot of major cases where they were 9-0. I can think of one about cell phone privacy. But in general, the big cases are 5-4.
Mr. Liptak, I had one final question for you. Going forward, as you're covering the Supreme Court, what are some of the major trends and kind of major moments that people should be aware of looking forward?
The court, after a long time out of the game, is back to have a big abortion decision this year, which is a very divisive issue that people care deeply about. President Obama's immigration plan is before the court. We have affirmative action before the court. We have public unions before the court. So in June, as the presidential election season is getting very hot, we're going to have a series of Supreme Court bombshells which are going to both be important in themselves, but also set off political repercussions.
Well, I know it was a big day tonight in the world of journalism, so I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
Great fun talking to you.
Thank you.